Okay. So, welcome to the 7th week of this course on managing change in organizations. In the previous weeks, as you remember, we have discussed the various stages of change management, starting with how to identify the need for the change to implementing the change, and we discussed all through these stages and the issues that need to be resolved at various stages. Now, in this week, we are going to discuss about some other issues which could be linked with change management. One of the important issues related to the change management is how we are going to manage innovations, because the moment we talk about change, it is related to innovation, innovation in products, innovation in services, innovation in processes, and these innovations in product, processes and services are possible only when we go for some kind of change. And then we go through all the stages of the change to ensure that organizations are able to innovate themselves on a continuous basis, so that they are able to remain competitive in the market. And that is why we are going to discuss about this managing change and how this innovation is linked with management of the change. So, what we are going to cover in this volume especially we will talk about innovation management, what is the role of change in innovation, and how we are going to link change and innovation. So, to begin with, if you look at the innovation and change. So, what is innovation? Innovation is basically an outcome of certain processes, where you try to develop a new idea or a new behavior in the organization. So, the moment you say that you are going to develop a new idea or a new behavior in an organization, you are talking about innovation. Okay. And change and innovation come both from outside forces, because if there are going to be technological innovation in the products, then you also need to go for these kind of innovations in order to compete in the market, right. And that is where you are going to initiate certain changes, so that you can innovate. So, innovation you can say is required for the change, and any kind of change includes some innovations in product, process and services, so that you can compete. And sometimes you go for disruptive innovations. Disruptive innovations is a different kind of innovation, where you are going to do something that is very drastic in terms of products and processes or services, which is going to provide you some kind of advantage in the market, and through which you can compete in a globally competitive market. Now, with this introduction, I am also giving here an example of say IBM, which was initially a hardware software company, but now it has moved to a service company, especially into consulting. So, the idea here is that when you are talking about companies, they also keep on changing their domain, their products, their processes, and they keep on moving and changing these in order to survive and compete in the market. So, the example that I have given here of IBM, say that how it has moved from being a hardware and software company to a consulting or servicing company. So, the idea is that if you do not change successfully, or if you do not implement change successfully in your organizations, and for that if you are not going to innovate, you are not going to survive tomorrow. So, it is very important to go for innovations which is linked with the change in order to compete and survive in the market. Now, I am also giving some examples here. See, these examples have been taken from the Forbes 2018 list, and this example talks about some of the companies which have been considered as most innovative. Now, if you look at these companies, some of them belong to say software, some of them are related to manufacturing, biotechnology, accessories, soft drinks, say household products. Now, if you look at this, most of these innovations actually have happened in the area of what you call the field of biotechnology, right, whether it is Regeneron or whether it is in Kawait or Electron Pharmaceuticals, or even if you look at Unilever, Indonesia, Vertex or Biomarin Pharmaceuticals. Most of these companies which are in the list of the top 10 companies, okay, are related to products which is in the field of biotechnology. Now, if you look at Tesla Motors, it is still in the top. Okay. Now, there is another list especially related to different kind of companies, where you will find companies like Amazon, where you will find companies like Microsoft, where you find companies like Google on the list. So, depending upon the requirement, different kind of lists have been prepared regarding most innovative companies. Now, if you look at the character of these innovative companies, you will find that they keep on changing their technology, their products, their services in order to remain competitive. So, the idea is that unless you go for a change, it is not possible for you to go for innovations in your product, processes and services. And that is where it is very, very important for any organizations to go for innovations, and for that they have to go for some kind of change. And that is why in this module we are trying to link change with innovation. Now, if you look at how we are going to link change and innovations, what we need to discuss is that how we are going to see that the forces which are important, or which are basically acting as a trigger or a catalyst to go for a change. It means that whenever you want to go for some kind of innovations, it means that it requires some kind of changes internally and externally. And the moment you are talking about changes, it means that you need to learn what kind of changes you need to bring in, right. So, it is very, very important that companies need to invest on learning what need to be changed, what is to be innovated, what kind of innovations that they have to bring in their products, processes and services. And when we are talking about why companies go for innovating products and processes or services, there could be a number of factors related to organizations within the organization, you can say, and also there could be external triggers. For example, if you look at external triggers, there could be change in the customer needs, desires, expectations, there could be competition, there could be change in the technology, because your competitors might be offering a different kind of technology, a new technology. There would also be change in the demographic pattern of the population, okay, which also requires some kind of adjustments and adaptation to be made by the companies. Then what kind of economic cycle you are going through, whether it is in a growth phase, maturation phase. Then the geopolitical event also forces you to go for some kind of innovations. For example, if a developing country is not getting say up to date state of the technology from a developed country, then the developing country is also forced to go for innovations. For example, if you look at India's space program and the kind of satellites that India have been sending to orbit, this is the best examples where developed countries have not allowed India to have access to the latest technology, and then Indian scientists have gone for developing their own technology, indigenous technology, and they have been very, very successful to put lot of say satellites into the space. So, geopolitical events are very, very important, and that forces you to go for some kind of innovations. Then when there is a change in the environment, especially in the external environment, whether political, social, cultural, technical environment go for a change. This point we have already discussed earlier also. Then social changes, when the changes happens in the society in terms of what kind of say products they are looking forward to. And then industry structure changes, when the changes happens in the structure of the industry itself. If you look at any kind of industries, the way they have been doing business, even the business model go for changes. And then finally, regulatory changes which has been by the national governments, and then you need to follow these regulatory changes, and accordingly you bring about certain changes. Say for example, most of the companies now have to comply with regulatory changes related to goods and services tax in the country, right. So, there could be lot of external triggers, and these triggers necessitate some kind of innovations, and for that you need to go for some kind of changes. Similarly, if you look at internal triggers are there, like the kind of decision making process that you have, the problems related to operations, you are not able to produce effectively in terms of quality and efficiencies. There is a company which is either growing or declining, both cases you need to maintain that, and if you are declining, then you need to see that what kind of changes to be brought in order to ensure that you are remain viable and competitive. Then you also need to bring about change in the leading people who are leading the change, say organizations, and also how the organizations are going to relate themselves with other organizations in the similar sector or the different sectors. So, the idea here is that when we are talking about the triggers of the change come from external and internal forces, right, and these changes are actually act as a catalyst for some kind of innovations that you need to bring in order to remain competitive, right. So, moving further, now what we are going to talk about is change in the products and technologies. See, when we are talking about innovations, most of the innovations happens in the area of product and technologies, and that is where you go for bringing about a change in your product or technology. So, when we are talking about the product changes, it means that we are talking about change in the kind of product that an organization is producing or the services that it is offering to its clients or customers, right. So, whenever you try to bring about a change in the product and the services, it means that yes, there is a change, and this change is because of what? Because of the innovations that has happened, and that is how you are able to offer you a different kind of products, a new product or a product with an added features, and similarly also you are going to offer a different kind of services, new services. Similarly, another kind of change that happens in the organization is how you are going to produce certain things. It means you are talking about the changes in the technology, and when we are going to talk about the changes in the technology, it means you are talking about what is the nature of the production system, whether you are using a mechanical system, a automated system, or whether you are using a computer aided system, a computer aided design, manufacturing, or you are going for a mass based production system or a tailor based, and if you are going to use a tailor based production system, are you using flexible manufacturing systems or not, right. So, these are the two major areas where changes happens, which could be related with or linked with the innovation, because whenever you are going to bring about a new product or new technology, it means some innovation has happened in the product and the technology, and that is how you have been able to bring about a change, right. So, in order to bring about a change in the product and technology, what kind of strategies are used in terms of innovation? That includes exploration, cooperation, and entrepreneurship. So, now we are going to discuss about these three innovation strategies, which is related to this, and then we will talk about different kind of innovations. So, if you look at different kind of innovations, it means what? Innovation in the product. It means either there is a change in the appearance of the product. Earlier it was bulky, you have designed it, which has become more sleek now. Like if you look at the computers industry, you find that the size of the product keep on changing, right, or there is a change in the performance of the product, it is more productive, more efficient. So, if this kind of innovation is happening, it means it is related to product innovation, right. Second is process innovation. It means that you have gone for a change in the process through which the product is being conceived, manufactured, or disseminated, right. So, for example, if you look at the assembly line, so whether you have gone for a change in the assembly line, whether you have gone for automated processes to come out with a product, so there could be a process related to say supply chain, process related to customer relationship management, right. So, all these are all these innovations are you can relate with what you call process innovation. Then you have incremental innovations, we have already talked about it. It means that you are going to create products and services and then keep on modifying the existing products, right. So, in the first case when we are talking about product innovation, basically we are talking about a new product, a new process, but when you talk about innovation, incremental innovation, then it is related to a product, a service, or a technology where you are going to have added features or you are going to modify either the product, the services, or technology to make it more effective and efficient. Then we have radical changes or what you call the transformational changes, and this basically talks about creating new products and services, okay, which is going to replace the existing products. Okay. So, these are the four different kind of innovations. Now, we will go back to talk about innovation strategies, which is related to exploration, cooperation, and entrepreneurship, and all this leads to what you call new product, services, and technologies. So, one strategy is related to exploration, okay, and exploration takes place through creativity process, we will talk about it, then experimentation, and then idea incubators. Then if you look at cooperation, It means that you need to develop mechanism based on your structure, that how vertically and horizontally people coordinate with each other in order to come out with a new product or services. Then it is also related to customers and your partners, business partners, and then you also go for innovation, open innovations, new products and services. Then entrepreneurship is also related to new products or innovation, right. So, in entrepreneurship you have in organizations who come out with new ideas, they are called idea champions. Then you have new venture teams which is responsible for new products or services, right. Then skunk works, those who are responsible for coming out with products and services. Then there are new venture funds, basically new venture funds who are going to sponsor your idea to come out with a new product and services. So, we will talk about these kind of strategies and how they could be related with new products and services. So, if you look at this, it is like this exploration strategies. So, exploration strategy is basically related to when you try to explore that what kind of products and services you require to better serve your customers, right. So, creativity is a process through which you come out with a product, right. So, through this creativity process you come the idea that you have, and you see that how it is going to meet needs of the customers or the organizations, and what kind of opportunities it is going to offer to the organization, right. Then you have idea incubator also. Idea incubator is a person basically where he is going to come out with a new idea and is going to experiment with this new idea with the support of the companies without any interference from either the company's hierarchy or the politics that is involved. One example that I have taken here is idea incubator is in Yahoo, they call it brick house, and they get the support of the top management. If they do not get the support of the top management and there is inference from the bureaucracy and the politics, probably Yahoo will not be able to come out with new ideas or able to develop and experiment with new ideas. So, that they can come out with a new product or services. Now, if you look at the creativity, it is very, very important to see that what are the characteristics which creative people have and what are the characteristics which is related to what you call organizations or the department, right. If you look at creative individuals, these are some of the characteristics. Okay, they try to think something that is new or original, right. They know what is the concept, they are able to actually visualize what they want to have, and they are very open minded, because if they think narrowly, probably they will not be able to come out with something that is new. Okay. They work independently, they do not want to be say dealt by authority. So, they want to see that there is more empowerment, less control from the top management. So, they go for less authority, more independence, and they also are more self confident people, right. And they are very, very curious, they try out new things, experiment with new things, okay. Not necessarily related to their own field, but any kind of field, and they are very, very persistent. These are the characteristics. They have lot of patience, committed to what they do, and they are very focused. So, these kind of people actually could be part of what you call an R&D team. So, with their knowledge and skill and these characteristics, they can come out with something that is new, right. Similarly, if you look at creative organizations or creative departments, they also have certain characteristics in terms of, if you look at the structure, they have very open channel of communications. Okay. They also contact people with outside, and they have overlapping territories like cross pollination of ideas across disciplines, across departments. Okay. So, that these ideas come out and they become fertile, and they also depend upon what you call suggestion systems, brainstorming, freewheeling discussions. So, that the idea could be materialized into something that could be concrete and work, right. Then another important thing is that they assign non-specialists to problems, because they bring a different kind of perspectives, right. Eccentricity is allowed, means that they allow people to think about on their own and without interference from others, right. They also hire people who are from outside, but beyond their comfort zone, because they can think more creatively, right. And they also have this policy of decentralization, because decentralization gives them an opportunity to take certain decisions, right. These kind of organizations accept mistakes, reward risk taking behavior of the people and ask them to take challenge. So, supervisors encourage people to take challenge. Similarly, if you look at some other characteristics like they are more focused to see that what needs to be done. So, they decide and think on the problem on which they are going to work. It is not going to be dominated by the top management. Similarly, they also need resources. So, these kind of organizations provide enough resources, allocate resources to people in their departments or the organizations. Okay. Not necessarily that is it is going to have an immediate payoff, but they look at the long term rewards that is coming out of this kind of things. And they also have a reward system which encourage motivate people to take risk, and definitely they also provide responsibilities not only in their own area, but also peripheral areas, so that they can connect and relate with them. So, when we are talking about exploration, creativity is very important, whether it is related to the individual or the organization, because creativity is a process through innovation comes out. So, it is very important to ensure and encourage creativity at the individual and the group level in the organization. Moving to this, the next part which is related to cooperation, both internally and externally, it is very important. So, you need to ensure that how horizontally you can link with each other, okay, so that everybody can contribute together. Then you also talk about the coordination mechanism, that how people are going to relate their activities with each other. For example, say marketing, research, R&D people, manufacturing. So, how you can these three departments can coordinate their activities with each other, because marketing department can identify the kind of products that is required. R&D is going to develop the prototype or the product based on the input from the marketing research. Then the manufacturing department is supposed to come out with new product, it is going to develop the new product in their say manufacturing facilities, right. And for that you need to plan well, so that you are able to come out with a new product or services. So, this internal coordination is very much required. Similarly, you also require external coordination that include your customers, suppliers, partners, right, and see whether you are able to go for commercialization of ideas beyond the organization, because it is very important. For example, if you look at P&G, Procter and Gamble, they have gone for patenting the ideas, so that they can commercialize it at later stage. Then like Lego or Hollywood studios, they also coordinate their activities with customers, partners, suppliers, and they go for open source innovation, so that they can commercialize the ideas beyond the organization, right. Another example that is given here is like crowdsourcing. Okay. It is different from crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is where you get funding from different sources, and crowdsourcing where you are going to source ideas from anywhere and everywhere, right. So, the idea is coming from different type of people having different kind of knowledge, skill, and different kind of backgrounds, right. For example, one thing that is developed is known as Threadless 2.0. It is an example of crowdsourcing, and that is the best example I can give here for external coordination, like Web 2.0, where you are open, share, participate without any say intervention from others, so that you can source these ideas from people, and then you can make use of this for being innovative in terms of product and services. Now, the third is related to what called this model, this coordination model, where if you look at this, like we are talking about the new technology or the partners, innovation partners, then you have customers, market needs, and also the innovation mechanism. Within the organization, if you look at this, how they are going to relate, the manufacturing department, R&D department, and marketing department, they need to coordinate their activities, and the input is coming from different sources, from the innovation mechanism, from the new technologies, from the formal innovation partners, or the customer requirements. Based on these inputs at different levels, the organization is going to coordinate and create some kind of linkages among the departments, so that the organization is going to be innovative. Moving further, so what kind of roles in the managers and others have in the process, right. So, the idea here is that the managers should support entrepreneurial activities and foster idea champions. So, that anybody who is coming about with new idea, it is your job to support him. Okay. So, and that is where you require energy and effort, so that you can promote a new idea. So, if a person is coming out with a new idea, he is called an idea champion. Now, this person need to be supported in terms of sponsorship. Okay. So, you need to sponsor. So, the role of the sponsor is to approve and protect ideas, okay, while others are going to challenge the concept. So, any new idea is there, you know that lot of people start resisting that, no, no, it is not going to work. But let there be some people who can think that, okay, whether the idea is good or not, you do not evaluate it, let us see whether this idea is going to work it or not. So, through brainstorming, at a later stage you can evaluate the idea and see whether it has some viability, whether it could be used, whether it can be worked on, experimented on or not. So, both the managers and sponsors must play a very significant role so far as innovation is coming, otherwise it is very, very difficult to be innovative and productive. Then you also have new venture teams, okay, and this team is responsible to ensure that any idea champion who is coming out with a new idea goes through the creative process, all the support which is required is provided to them. It is very, very important. And then you have skunk works are basically these are the groups which focus on breakthrough idea, right, and that is why they are known as skunk groups. They are informal, autonomous, service, secretive groups that focus on breakthrough ideas, new idea, right. And then you have new venture funds, you have people who are going to provide resources for the new idea. It could come from within the organization, it could come from outside also. Moving further, when you are talking about these different roles, especially in case of change management, these are the 4 different roles that have been identified for the managers, especially when it comes to linking innovation and change. This include inventor, acting as an idea champion or sponsor or a critic. So, these 4 roles are very, very important when it comes to change, organizational change especially. Now, if you look at inventor, inventor is someone who has the idea of something new and he develops and looks into the technical aspects of it, okay, but he does not know what to do further, right, because he needs support, and that is where you require idea champions, right. These are the people who believe in the ideas and can see the benefits of these ideas, and they are able to visualize, okay, whether this idea is going to work or not. Okay. They look at the cost, resources and everything which is required to implement the ideas, right. They also look at support from the top management, financial support, okay, and see that if there is an obstacles that could be removed. So, inventor with the help of champion would be able to experiment with this new idea. Without this, it is not possible for the inventors to go further, because he has an idea, he knows what is to be done, but he needs support from the management, and the support from the management comes from the champions, the idea champions, because they are going to support the idea, they are going to provide the resources, they are going to ensure that any obstacles which is there on the way to implement an experiment with this new idea is removed. Then there are sponsors, okay, the top managers, they are going to sponsor the idea, they are going to see that this idea is going to work, right, within the organizations. And finally, you also have critics, okay. They are going to provide some kind of reality test to see whether it is really working or not. Okay. They identify the problems or the shortcomings. Okay. They also see that whether this idea is going to fit into our system or not, whether it is going to work. So, they identify certain parameters, hard notes criteria, and see that whether this idea is going to pass through these criteria to ensure that it is going to work. So, when we are talking about these roles, all these roles are equally important, and we need to ensure that all these roles are taken care, so that the organization is able to go for some kind of change to bring innovation in the organization. And that is where we are going to link innovation and the change, right. So, what kind of change is related to what kind of innovation, right. For example, organization change which comes to innovation basically, because change happens only if there is innovation, right, correct, in terms of increased productivity, sales or anything like that. Then cultural change, it also leads to innovation, right. If you have a good corporate culture, that is going to provide you powerful say advantage over your competitors, because in a competitive market it is very important that you have a strong culture, because this strong culture is related to performance and productivity. Then technical changes definitely leads to innovation, right. We will talk about product and process innovations when you are going to implement new product and services processes, right. Then we talk about knowledge assets changes, we are going to tangible assets which have been created or the solid assets that is created. So, both tacit and explicit assets that is created within the organizations, and these tangible assets could be in form of say intellectual properties, patents, trademarks, goodwills, positioning, because all this is an example of what you call the knowledge assets. So, this knowledge assets basically is an outcome of innovation, right, which can bring a lot of changes in the organization. Then re-engineering, business process re-engineering, it also leads to innovation, because it talks about radical changes, okay, or a new structure or a new format, right. And that is where we are going to link innovation and change together. And there could be a lot of challenges when you go for these kind of innovations to bring about certain changes, and then management has to ensure that these challenges are overcome. Like it could be related to bureaucratic controls, unwillingness to expose customers to failed ideas, right, risk aversion opportunities, because it is very important that employees are able to take risks, and then you need to ensure that you are able to implement any kind of change which leads to innovation properly, following all the processes and the stages, and then you have to focus on processes as well as results both. And then you need to ensure there is a support for research, R&D activities, marketing intelligence is acting as the input for innovation, and then how this is executed and whether it is going to be sustainable or not. And then you also require, as I told you, support from the top management. Then you also need to ensure internally that yes, your HR policy, structure, team, compensation is aligned with that one. And then how are we going to measure it? Through profitability, return on investments, dividends, because this is going to show that whether your innovation is really bringing out profit for the organization or not, right. And then what kind of tangible assets you have created in terms of knowledge management, your tacit and explicit knowledge, trade secrets, right, patents, intellectual properties that is created. So, what we have discussed here is that we are trying to link basically how innovation and change are related with each other, and with this we want to conclude this session. Thank you very much.